Hello and welcome to the latest installment of Mayor Brown's video series at the Crossroads, CFTC and DOJ Enforcement. My name is Matt Kluchenek, a partner at Mayor Brown, member of the Litigation and Dispute Resolution Group, and I'm joined today again by my partner Glen Kopp, former federal prosecutor out of the Southern District of New York, also a partner at Mayor Brown and a member of the White Collar Defense Team. So each week, our goal is to bring to you a timely and informative topic involving the intersection of the CFTC and the DOJ. It seems as though there are no shortage of topics to discuss. And today we're going to continue on the theme of disruptive trading practices and more specifically spoofing activity. During our last installment, we talked about the aggressive enforcement by various self-regulatory organizations, including the markets, the exchanges, as well as FINRA, so on and so forth. And today we're going to focus in on the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, or the CFTC, and talk a little bit about what the CFTC has been doing and maybe more importantly, where things may be headed. So with that, Glenn, I will turn it over to you.
Well, Matt, as we often do, I'm gonna flip it right back to you here. I'll start sort of the conversation off with sort of a broad question about the sort of enforcement environment at the CFTC when it comes to spoofing.
Sure, Glenn. So briefly, the enforcement environment at the CFTC, as many know, continues to be on fire, and a focal point of the CFTC continues to be on disruptive trading generally, as well as spoofing activity, and coupled with that manipulation, price manipulation in particular. And so the CFTC has really been at it since about, I'd say, 2011 in terms of bringing spoofing investigations and prosecutions. They brought since then more than 60 enforcement actions against more than 80 respondents or defendants. Clearly, they've investigated many more, but it continues to be a very, very robust program as we sit here today.
And Matt, what's the significance of 2011?
Well, a lot of significance in the sense that we had the Dodd-Frank Act, which was passed in July of 2010, and it had a really essentially a single statement with respect to the anti-spoofing prohibition built into Section 4C.A.5.C of the Commodity Exchange Act, again, via Title VII of the Dodd-Frank Act. And then you had an investigation brought by the CFTC, and that was before the CFTC actually issued its guidance on essentially what spoofing and manipulation in the context of spoofing means. There was a proposed release in 2012. There was final guidance issued in 2013. But with the investigation of Michael Kosha and ultimate prosecution by the CFTC and thereafter the DOJ, it really kind of in earnest began the onset of the CFTC's anti-spoofing program.
And Matt, can you talk about any sort of, whether it's trends or changes over time that you've seen in the CFTC's enforcement of spoofing and spoofing related activity?
Sure. I mean, there's a lot we could talk about in that respect, Glenn, but great question. I think early on, the idea and sort of the viewpoint was that, okay, you have spoofing activity. You think about spoofing in a vacuum, and it's, as we've discussed before, placing an order with the intent to cancel it prior to consummation. And so spoofing in a vacuum, early on, we saw some activity there, but it didn't take long for the CFTC to focus on the reason why somebody might spoof or place a bogus order. It's because they want to somehow benefit another position. And so really coupling spoofing with this notion of manipulation, right? Essentially, ultimately the bottom, trying to get market participants to do something they wouldn't otherwise do for an unlawful process or purpose, I'm sorry. And so, you've seen that grow now beyond sort of spoofing with that coupled manipulation. More generally, you've seen the CFTC focus on disruptive trading. We touched on this a little bit with respect to the exchanges, different types of practices. And maybe it's not a spoof per se, but maybe it's a type of rogue algorithm Maybe it's what we refer to as open market manipulation. There might be lawful orders that are placed, but there's a manipulative intent. Some of those may or may not include spoofed orders. Oftentimes does include some form of disruptive trading. So the envelope continues to be pushed. I think more recently, and we've seen this a little bit, but more recently, it seems as though there might be a trend towards cross-contract or cross-market enforcement. So typically, we often see spoofing investigations where, and just, to pick something out of the hat here, the December wheat contract, the wheat futures contract. And so, you might see an alleged spoofing scheme in the context of that contract. But where you have correlated products or correlated contracts, you might see spoofing in one particular contract in an effort to assist or benefit an order in a correlated contract. There have been some cases, one in particular a couple of years ago brought and settled by the CFTC. Seems to me, just based on the pipeline, the CFTC might be exploring that in a little bit more detail. And so that's an example of where we would expect to see greater activity.
Matt, what are the kinds of remedies that the CFTC has at its disposal when prosecuting or enforcing spoofing?
Great question again, Glenn. And as we know, the CFTC is a civil agency. Glenn and I are going to talk a lot about the criminal component to spoofing and manipulation. But with respect to the CFTC, there's a range of sanctions, if you will. There's civil monetary penalties, fines that can be ordered. There are suspensions. There are bars. There's restitution. There's disgorgement. Restitution, we see sometimes, not all of the time. Keep in mind that spoofing and manipulation really are market credibility offenses. Oftentimes, there's not necessarily a discrete customer harm, but it is harm to the market in general. The CFTC and the DOJ in particular have made strides in terms of trying to identify victims and making sure that victims, other market participants, are compensated. More broadly speaking, these are market credibility offenses. But the other one too, and we've seen this increasingly, is around undertakings. And undertakings in the form of, the requirement to hire additional compliance personnel, policies, procedures, monitors, outside consultants, so on and so forth. Very significant in terms of, the requirement of time, as well as economic resources to support those undertakings. And I think there's likely to be no abatement in the future with respect to that as a sanction, a form of sanction.
And Matt, just on that point, sort of stepping back from enforcement of spoofing prohibitions and talking about compliance, what are the kind of things that you tell your clients in terms of compliance focus to avoid problems with trader spoofing?
Sure, Glenn. So we all know this, right? Compliance matters, but it needs to be the right type, the right form of compliance. Hopefully, everybody by now is aware that boilerplate, for example, policies and procedures are not going to cut it. And regulators want to see, and in fact, what really works are tailored procedures with respect to trading strategies, with respect to markets, with respect to products. Platitudes about, thou shalt not engage in spoofing, citations to the relevant section and rules, so on and so forth, really are not sufficient in this day and age, and certainly not consistent, from my perspective, with regulators' expectations. So you need robust, tailored policies, procedures. You need adequate training, and training that actually, looks at particular scenarios and scenarios relevant to a trading group or team. So if they're engaged in a certain type of trading and running through the various, scenarios and situations which may be permissible and not be permissible, but really getting into the weeds. And quite frankly, ensuring that compliance personnel understand, as most often do these days, understand almost as much about trading as the traders do, so that these scenarios can be relevant and really, really targeted, is critically important. One in particular, though, area with respect to compliance generally would be that of surveillance. and really surveillance systems, making sure whether developed in-house or purchased externally from a third-party vendor, making sure there's a surveillance program in place, fully implemented, that can ferret out potential spoofs, making sure, moreover, that you have parameters with respect to any sort of surveillance program, again, whether proprietary or third party, parameters that are designed to capture flag potential spoofing or manipulative behavior. And there's a lot of room in terms of where you set parameters on these programs, right? You can set parameters so narrowly that nothing shows up and everybody thinks, oh, we're doing a fantastic job. You can set the parameters in a very broad fashion, so you get tons of false positives. That doesn't do anybody any good. So it's really kind of tailoring those parameters, making sure that surveillance system is in place, and then, making sure that the resources and attention is there to monitor flags, to monitor alerts when they arise. And escalating as appropriate. Another thing that's really important with respect to compliance is something as basic as distributing alerts with respect to trends, with respect to certain cases, that a firm may be seeing, whether it's out of an exchange, the CFTC, or the DOJ, just continuing to stay on the radar. It's a difficult enough environment. We all know there are so many things that traders need to be aware of in this highly regulated environment. One thing that can't be overlooked, though, even though it's been around a long time now, is that of spoofing, manipulation, and more generally disruptive trading.
So Matt, if you could sort of give us a prediction, if you may, about whether or not you see any abatement in CFTC enforcement of potential spoofing violations as we go forward.
I'll tell you, Glenn, we've been waiting for some abatement for, frankly, a couple of years now, and we keep thinking it has to occur. We really haven't seen it. There might be a slight tapering at the civil level and maybe the administrative level, and I think part of that would be due to the fact that there's been so much press about the spoofing and manipulation prohibition. There have been a lot of a number of DOJ convictions and guilty pleas, and again, really, really significant fines, suspensions, undertakings from a civil and administrative perspective. So that's clearly, been blasted out there. Market participants should know about it. Many of them do, and there's some really phenomenally successful compliance programs out there. So at some point, it's got to start to abate. I don't think it has really happened in earnest yet, but certainly time will tell. And Glenn, let me turn it over to you, if you would, for some closing remarks.
Thanks, Matt. I think I'll pick up sort of from where you just left off in terms of the impact of some of the DOJ prosecutions. We're going to get into more detail in some of our next sessions about DOJ prosecutions and the sort of deterrent effect that they might have had or may be having on spoofing and in the market. We'll also touch on the role of the SEC and in the securities markets and enforcing anti-spoofing type statutes and their enforcement there. So we'll continue to focus on spoofing in the weeks ahead.
All right, thanks, Glenn. And that concludes today's session of At the Crossroads. Thanks for watching or listening. We appreciate your attention and look forward to seeing you soon.